Awesome. I'll let everyone in right now.
Hello.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on a Sunday evening for the Big Red Masterclass on, as the topic says, affording and attending top US colleges. For people who have attended our masterclasses before, I would request all of you to please switch on your cameras for some time at least, so that you can also introduce yourself to Jose and Caroline, who are here with us to take this session. At the same time, I would love to know from some of you, once you do switch on your cameras, to just tell us a little bit about why you're here. What are maybe a couple of questions that you want to be answered from today's webinar? If there are parents as well joining us, that would be great. And then, of course, Jose and Caroline can sort of take that approach as well and make sure that those questions get answered. But we'll start in a couple of minutes. Before that, once again, please do switch on your cameras for some time. Thank you for people who are doing that. And yeah, over to you, Jose and Caroline, if you want to introduce yourself, and then, yeah, you can.
Thank you so much, Rishi. And we'll obviously start in about 2 minutes time, and just wanted to say hello to you. So my name is Jose, or Jose Kumar, and that's Caroline Linger. Girija is also here, so she's also joining the meeting from our group, and I think Martin will also be there in a few minutes. But it's really lovely to meet you all today, and thank you so much, Sanjana and a couple of others who have started their video.
Yes, I can see you.
It's always nice to see some people. Hi, Shreyashi. I think it's always good to see some smiling faces on the other side. So I think that's good. Brinda, really nice to meet you.
It's really good to see you.
So guys, we will do as much information as possible. So we don't believe in presentations. So I'm not going to give you a PowerPoint slide and saying this is the information you should be capturing and writing it out. Yeah, but we will certainly provide you a lot of information and a lot of insight on this year's admission cycle, which has just concluded, by the way, just a few days ago.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, we've done very well. Our students that we work with normally across the world have gotten to some great universities. And but it has been, I have to say, the most competitive year ever from a university admissions point of view.
Because of
the details are still going to come over the next few months from all the different universities. But as they come along, I think if you guys want some information on that, you can very well join College Ready. It's a free application. It's a free website, collegeready.com. You're welcome to go there, and you can get access to a lot of the video content that we produce. And also at the same time, we'll provide some insight on how this admission cycle actually happened this year. And that can be, hopefully, it can help you figure out what you should be doing over the next 1 year, 2 years before you apply to universities potentially, and making yourself hopefully a better competitor for getting into top tier schools. We're going to spend majority of our time. Rishi, go on.
No, I was just going to say I was going to call on a couple of people maybe and ask them what are they really expecting out of this webinar today.
Sure.
And then we can move forward. Okay, why don't we take some of the people who do have their camera switched on. So let's maybe start with Rhythm. Okay, you just had your camera on, but or let's go with to our.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't mind.
Okay, perfect. Rhythm, why don't you tell me
yeah,
what are you looking forward for today's webinar? Just give us which school and which city are you from? Just introduce yourself, and then what are you looking forward to learning today?
All right. Hi everyone. My name is Rhythm, and I'm 15 years old. I just turned 15, and I'm from the Indian High School, which is located in Dubai. So I'm from Dubai. I'm an Indian by nationality, although I live in Dubai. I'm an expatriate. Talking about my interests, I love loads of things. I like doodling a lot, which in fact I was doing 5 minutes before I joined this meeting. 1 second, why did my video go? Yeah, so I was just doing doodling, and yeah, that's quite my hobby.
Oh, wow.
Very nice.
So yeah, that's a hobby. And yeah, I love creating social impact. So I'm an entrepreneur as well, and I've been working with many startups. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to getting to my dream school. Of course, I mean, any kid wants to get into their dream school, which is Stanford University. And yeah, and financial aid is a big thing when it comes to applications. Hence, I wanted to join this meeting today. And yeah, that's why I've come here today.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks, Rhythm, for it's great to know about you, know your interests, and where you want to go. Clearly, I know a couple of kids this year who got into Stanford, yeah, I love that college as well. I personally went to Cornell, but it was for the sports reasons. I did send you an email with a quick introduction about myself, so hopefully you got some idea. Hi, Martin. Would love to welcome you as well. Let's take one more student. Let's go over to a girl, maybe Sanjana. Why don't you tell us where you're from, what school, and what you're planning to learn today?
My name is Sanjana. I'm an American citizen, but I live in Hyderabad, Telangana. It's like in South India. And I want to take business management as my major once I get into college. I'm 16. I'm going to be turning 17 soon, next month. So I'm going to be applying to different colleges this fall. And that's the reason why I'm coming into this webinar. I want to know how I can afford college, what can I get from scholarships when I have to apply for different scholarships. And I don't want to put financial pressure on my parents. I don't want them to be forced to pay for something just, for my sake. I want to be able to afford college, but then also help in the payment. And I want to go into UC Berkeley, Haas School of Business, because it's one of the best business schools in the US. So yeah, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
We're happy you're here.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Always good to see young faces, and especially you guys are taking the time out on a Sunday. So we do appreciate it for our mentors as well who are here, Jose and Caroline, to take the valuable time out of their schedules, and for you guys, of course, to making to coming here and listening to us speak. So on that note, if you don't mind, Jose, I'm going to put a spotlight on you, so that, or
Sure.
do you want it to be more in a gallery setting so that you're able to see other people as well?
It's up to you.
Okay.
Up to you.
So I'll put you for a spotlight for a bit, and welcome once again, everyone, and over to you, Jose and Caroline.
That's fine. All right. So guys, we have been working in this industry for a very long time. I think Caroline's been working in it for about
26 years
26, 27 years.
Yeah.
I think Martin has been there for, he doesn't want us to mention how long he's been into that.
He's been in it for longer than I have.
Into this process.
So.
And Rija is our newest member into our team. And so as a group, we work with, as Ivy Central, we work with a number of students every year to trying to help them not only figure out what kind of universities or career ambitions they have, but helping them build a profile and helping them get into the universities of their dreams. A lot of times with scholarships and or financial aid in hand. That means that's something that they look forward to, making sure that they are able to afford a US-based education. US-based education has become expensive over the last 20 years, right? So from a point where...
Even the last decade, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
from a point where it used to be perhaps $30,000, $40,000, maybe about 2 decades ago.
No, that was 1 decade ago.
Yeah, to a point where now I think a cost of education is $70,000 to $85,000 a year, and that is I think it's an unbelievable hike in the pricing of an education. But there are ways to counteract that, and I think we're going to go through a number of different things you can think about and how to win not only scholarships, but how to actually reduce the cost burden to your families, but also to your entire life, because at the end of the day, you want to graduate as much as possible debt-free. And we're going to discuss, first of all the universities that can give you aid, that can make it possible for you to attend the universities, and what does it mean to apply for financial aid. I think everybody needs to understand that first. And we're going to also talk about how you can actually get merit scholarships. And those are, I would say, more widely available. And those can help you bring down the cost of attending by a considerable amount. I mean, anything from maybe $10,000 a year less, all the way to 100% of the cost of attending. but you need to know how to structure your application in a way that will make that possible, and which universities are more likely to accept you for financial aid or financial merit scholarship than perhaps those that are more likely to reject you for the fact that you're not able to pay complete the cost of attending there. So I'm going to definitely try to bring Martin and Girija into the conversation as well, if they can bring some context in there. But I think we will try to cover as much as possible through that. Now, the most important thing, I think all of you and are in some form of preparation towards hopefully a US-based education. Maybe some of you also want to apply to UK universities, and that's fine as well. Potentially universities in Canada or Australia or New Zealand, maybe even Singapore. So from a cost perspective, obviously there are some universities that provide, I would say, a huge amount of benefit in applying towards them, so that they can see that you're highly, gifted kids. Academically, you're strong. Extracurriculars, you're strong. Like Rhythm was mentioning, he is an entrepreneur, started a couple of entrepreneurship things. And that's a really positive thing for a lot of universities to take a look at, that you're already involving yourself into something far greater than what a 15-year-old would normally do.
Yeah, because you're challenging yourself and they want to see that.
Absolutely. I would say approximately 50% of our students that we work with every year kind of want to have some kind of big name college on their list, but also they require some money from that perspective. It means they want to say, well, okay, if I can reduce my cost burden from not paying $85,000 to maybe paying $40,000, that might be a good benefit for me. And over the years, I think Caroline and I and our team has helped our students get approximately $40 million in merit scholarships and some amount of aid as well for all the universities that they have gotten into.
And that's just in the last, I guess, 8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we go into the details of which universities you should start considering, how to make sure that you actually get merit scholarships or potentially even financial aid, I'm going to make some distinctions. There's two groups of people. One are US nationals and permanent residents, who are usually green card holders, who are allowed to live and work in the US. The others are everybody else, right? So the foreign nationals who are generally not living in the US, even if they were living in the US, they would not be eligible for US aid in such. That means the US government will not pay for your ability to attend. Now, what is financial aid? So that's the number one question, okay? So Caroline, do you want to just maybe give a glimpse of what financial aid is and how people sometimes make a kind of a misinterpretation of financial aid versus scholarship? Do you want to make a distinction between the two?
I mean, the way I see it, financial aid is for people whose parents do not have that 300,000 to invest in university. And for those students that are American, especially those who are American, but those who have permanent citizenship as well, right? They can get decent financial aid from certain schools in the US. It's decreasing every year, but it hasn't decreased totally. And that's financial aid, that's not scholarship. Now, for international citizens, if you want to get financial aid, it is really not easy at all. There are about 5 schools in the US at the moment that offer financial aid to international citizens. But we have merit scholarships, and merit scholarships at all the top schools will help you to afford that journey.
Well, let me put some emphasis on the 5 schools, right? Stanford is not one of them, weirdly enough. So if you Rhythm, I'm sorry to say, but if you apply to Stanford University as an international student, so you're an Indian national, whether you're living in Dubai or even if you're living in the US, when you apply for financial aid to Stanford, Stanford will actually decrease your chances of acceptance. You need to know that. So all of you need to know, if I am applying with a financial aid requirement, schools like Stanford are actually going to put my application into a smaller group of students who want money to attend the university. Even though Stanford is a super rich school and they will fulfill 100% of the need of every admitted student, they unfortunately give emphasis and priority to only US nationals. They are need aware of international students, and they are need blind to US nationals. That means when the US national application is in front of them, they will open the application. They don't know whether this guy or girl needs money. They will open an international student's application in front of them. They already know this individual needs money or doesn't need money. And according to that, they will make a preferential selection, which is, I will take an international student. So let's say if Rhythm had applied to Stanford as a student, he said that I need financial aid. They will say, okay, he's a really great candidate for us, but we don't have the money for him, technically speaking.
It's occasionally possible. I mean, think of Sharia,
Yeah,
that was 10
yeah.
years ago. But
I would say occasionally there might be some aid available, but I would say if the acceptance rate of Stanford for international students, and I'm not kidding you, is about 1 to 2%.
Yeah.
Right? With aid, you're dropping down to the percentage points of getting in. So you need to understand, if you really want to go to Stanford and you can't afford it, it is so much harder to get in. Should you then be applying without aid? Obviously not. If you can't afford it, there's always going to be a difficulty or challenging element of doing that. So the question is, then should you be applying to Stanford at all in that particular instance? Well, if you want to take a risk, apply there and then expect that, okay, they might get, but most of the students will get rejections, unfortunately. And it's a very big rejection element.
But fortunately,
So let me just complete,
let me just
complete something. There are schools in the US that are need blind to international students. So all of you need to make sure if you're highly accomplished, you are a straight A student, or you get 90% and above on all of your grades, you have, like Rhythm, for example, something extraordinary that you want to demonstrate. You are an entrepreneur at the age of 15 and you've done something really big. There are definitely a couple of schools that can really help you. Okay. Harvard, Princeton, Yale. Those three were the initial starting need blinds to every student that applies there. Okay. Dartmouth College has become need blind as of 2022, and they became need blind after the application season had ended. That means that all the applications were in. They allowed the students to then apply for need-based aid if they felt that they still wanted it and they were international. Dartmouth College has just joined Harvard, Yale, and Princeton to the fourth one, who is the need blind school in the Ivy League. Apart from that, there is no need blind school in the Ivy League. Cornell University has the Indian Tata Scholarship available. That means if you have a financial need, Cornell University will, Tata itself, this Tata Scholarship, will fulfill that requirement, but Cornell technically doesn't. But thankfully it's an endowment just for Indian nationals. But if you're a national of another country, unfortunately, you're not eligible for it. So if you are an Indian national, you apply to Cornell, you get accepted. If you do have a financial need and you can prove it, because you have to send your tax papers in and so on, and you need to showcase to the universities that you can't afford the education, then they will fulfill whatever you can afford. So when a need financial aid comes, it doesn't mean that they will fulfill 100% of what you require. They're going to see how much your parents can afford. And there's an affordability, right? Which is what is the element that is there. There's a question that popped up, which is, what is need blind? Need blind means the university doesn't care whether you need financial aid or not. They will assess your application in its entirety. And if you're the right candidate, they will accept you. And then they will look at whether you have a financial need or not. What is need aware is they will only look at your application, but they will know in the back of their mind that you need money. And because they have a small budget for international students, or sometimes no budget for international students, if you have a need, regardless of the application nature of your application, they will usually say, we can't afford you. That means they will immediately reject you for the benefit of the student, who even might be slightly less able than you, but can pay the entire fees of attending the universities. Okay, so it's unfortunately for universities in the US, money plays a very big role. These are all billion-dollar enterprises, and from that perspective, and unfortunately, they have money to pay for American nationals to attend when they can't afford it. But for majority of the cases, they do require money from international students, because it's the way that the entire system is structured.
They do get funding for American nationals, and that's the difference.
Yeah.
Because they get that funding, they don't have to worry quite as much about them. But do American nationals apply to university and not get the funding they want? Yep, every single year, millions of them.
Okay. And the one thing that I want to clearly state about the Ivy Leagues as well, apart from these four that we have mentioned, and Cornell being the additional element, right? The others, University of Pennsylvania and Columbia, Brown, they actually don't give. They are need aware to international students. So if you do apply there and you get in, and they do have a small budget to pay for your need, they will give you that ability to attend with some aid. But generally speaking, they're need aware. Need aware means your chances decline. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't mean it eliminates it. It means it declines. But there are some schools that have very small budgets. That means on a need aware basis, they could admit perhaps 5 people or 10 people a year who are international who can get financial aid from them up to 100%. Right? So if your need is 100% and they admit you, they will give you 100% of the aid that you require.
But I would say for most of the schools in the US, if you get half the fees paid, this is a big deal.
It's
great.
It is. Now, the other 2 schools that you need to know of that are need blind to international students are MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. They will provide you aid, fully financial aid, if you're an international student and you are applying to them and you get accepted. The other is Amherst College. It's a small liberal arts college, but it's one of the top tier liberal arts colleges. Actually, it is probably the #1 liberal arts college in the US. Amherst College also provides financial aid on a need blind basis to international students. So these are the schools that provide need blind, plus Cornell, which is only for internationals. They have the Tata Scholarship, and that's it. The rest of the schools in the US today are all need aware to international requirements. That means if you apply to University of California, Berkeley, you apply to Rice University, or you apply to University of Michigan, you apply to NYU, you apply to any of these schools, they will see whether you can afford or not. So one thing's for clear, which is if a lot of your friends or colleagues or peer groups in your past had applied to universities and they got rejected, one of the clear reasons why rejections might be happening, and it's no fault of their own, is that their affordability was not there and the universities could not afford actually bringing them into the college or the university. And it's such a shame that that's the case, because there's a huge amount of highly gifted students from India and abroad and different countries who can apply to universities, and they can really do really well there. But unfortunately, their affordability is limited. Okay.
Do you want to talk about below the top 10 schools?
Yeah. Now, I have to also clarify one more thing. The top tier schools, generally, the Ivy Leagues, the Stanfords of the world, MIT and so on, they don't give merit scholarships.
Also Northwestern and Duke and Tufts.
So the top tier universities, generally speaking, don't give financial merit scholarships, and there's a reason for it.
And many state schools don't as well.
One of the reasons, obviously, is that these universities have all their students who are highly merited. So how can they give merit to one person who is a straight A, 1580 student in SAT, versus another student who's also a straight A, and 10,000 more, right? Who are all highly gifted students. They can't give merit to everybody. So the point is this: if you're in the top 1% and you got admitted to these schools anyway, like Harvard, for example, merit scholarships are generally not possible. What is merit scholarship? Merit scholarship is all about the fact that you are their top percentile person. And when they got your application, you were either the #1 student there, right? That'll be admitted with the highest credentials. Usually the top 5%. If you're the top 5%, you can get merit money from a lot of institutions.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that merit money doesn't come from the top tier universities, which usually do not give money to students for their academic merit. But there are lots of institutions we're going to talk about today that do give you merit money, and you can apply specifically to them. And there you can potentially get 100% off. For example, University of Southern California. Okay, if you apply to University of Southern California, which is, by the way, I know it's on a lot of your target list, you'll say, I want to apply there. It's a big school. It does accept a lot of international students. It's actually a lot of international students. but they don't give financial aid. They are need aware of financial aid, but they do have a merit component, which is really outstanding. For about 1,000 students a year, out of which I can maybe calculate perhaps 200 of them, they will give up to 100% of merit money. If you're really gifted, let's say you're doing brilliantly in academics, you have a score close to 1,600 on SAT or a 35, 36 on ACT, you could become one of those students who can then get full merit scholarships from them. And we have had a lot of our students who have won over the years a USC full merit scholarship or a 50% merit scholarship. So they have two that they run in the big chunks, and then they have some international, specifically some international scholarships as well, which can be 100%, but can be also 25%, 50%, and so on. Okay. Now, these scholarships, by the way, generally speaking, are meant for tuition merit, but they can also include housing and food and things like that as well. But as a bare minimum, I would say the students may have to still afford things like housing and food during the time. That'll cost you perhaps maybe about $50,000 to $20,000 a year.
Yeah, it depends where you are.
Right, depends on which kind of scholarship you've received. But generally speaking, they are looking at 100% tuition merit scholarship.
I mean, the merit scholarships are given to students that universities want to attract away from the Ivies. It's that simple. They know that those kind of students could get into the Ivies if they can pay. So they think, okay, we're going to give merit scholarships and maybe they'll come to us instead. We want them here. And that happens every single year.
So merit is exactly that, right? You are a gifted student. They know that.
Yeah.
They also know that you will be a gifted student who will get accepted to a lot of universities. And they want to bring your gift to their university because they know that if you come to them, you will be highly successful at the university, get really high grades, and you will at the same time be able to perform really well in the work environment from a career objective point of view, because you are the top tier student. And I would say out of the majority of the top tier students that get into these scholarship-based programs, a lot of them go on to do something really big. They go into great, postgraduate schools. They get into great job employments. Some of them become CEOs of companies and stuff. And guess what? All of the universities are so proud. If you look at the university, first thing they say is, these CEOs or these big shots, these billionaires were our alums, because they like saying that, because it gives you, a student, a great chance to say, perhaps I can also become it.
And the vast majority of universities in the US do offer merit scholarship. It's only really the top maybe 15 that don't today.
Yeah. So they like Samhai just said, they do endorse their alums, because I think they're getting free publicity by every time somebody sees them and says he's a USC graduate or he's a Berkeley graduate. By the way, I think US News just released in 2023 list of schools that have I think it's the USC, is the most billionaires produced. Out of them, I think the ones like Berkeley, Stanford, USC are on the top of the list. That means the most number of billionaires that have been produced by the university. So if you want to become a billionaire, going to universities means that you have the best chance of making it big there. Obviously, that's not always the case, but I'm sure they do have some science attached to it. Now, state schools in the US,
like the University of California, University of Michigan, Georgia Tech's another very popular one, and obviously things like Virginia Tech, and also UIUC, which is very popular on our client node.
Yes. These schools, generally speaking, do not give merit money, and they definitely do not give financial aid to international students. So let me clarify there. If you have a financial need, you're looking for scholarship, applying to this university doesn't make too much sense. And there's a reason for it, right? They're not going to give you any financial benefit from a merit scholarship point of view, and they're not going to give you any financial benefit from a financial aid point of view. So the question is, even if you get in, how will you afford University of California's $78,000 fee? Right? So the question is, how do you do that? So there's different thoughts about it. Now, banks in India generally will give, things like, for example, we've seen a lot of students do that. Their parents take bank loans, and the idea is, okay, over time they will going to a top tier university. From there, they study something like computer science or engineering. They will get into Apple or they'll get into Google, and they will. I have no doubt if you go to a school like Berkeley or Stanford, your chance of getting into a top tier company right after graduation is extremely high, or you can become an entrepreneur, start your own business, and get a lot of funding from the venture capital companies there. So if you have a great potential and you see that, look, my job, the first job I'm going to get is going to be $100,000. That means in about 3 years to 4 years, I can start paying a huge amount of that loan back, because that's very possible if I go to the top tier universities. So I would say that in those cases, yes, it would make sense for you to do that. But if you don't, obviously the debt that your parents might have to take to afford that, obviously something that you'll have to find a way to pay with potentially whatever institution or whatever postgraduate plans you have.
I think one of the good things is, though, for those of you definitely like Rhythm, who's looking for a more business oriented program, there are a lot of fantastic business oriented programs at the private school sector, and they can
Give you money.
give money.
Yes.
Yeah.
All
If
right.
you've done a lot in terms of entrepreneurship, they're more interested.
Yeah. And by the way, we're gonna hit back and we're gonna come back to how you can make yourself maybe a more effective applicant, right? And how do you make sure that you become really good? By the way, these days there's a lot of YouTube videos with a lot of people like running through their profiles and stuff. Great opportunity for you to learn from them. How did they get into a particular university? Look at those YouTube. I think it's what got me into Stanford, and they go through that.
They do, but sometimes I think they don't actually touch on the thing that actually got them in.
So let me just, but not always, because then they don't reveal every aspect of the application profile, but it's sometimes good to hear what they did. But one thing that I will always give you a slight maybe caution about is don't copy their profile, because universities are not looking for a copycat. Because if you are listening to that individual and you have done exactly the same project, well, the 300,000 or 1 million people that also listen to the same profile are going to copy exactly the same thing. So Stanford is going to get 1 year later 300,000 or 70,000 students who are applying with a very similar profile to this individual who revealed it.
You want to look unique, with your profile and the way you present it through your common application and through your other applications to the state schools. You want to look as though you're the unique one. You're the one that has done things nobody else has. Even if that's not entirely the truth, but you can position it that way.
Okay, we're going to go through a list of schools that, by the way, that do give merit scholarships, and that at least that we know
there are thousands.
There's a lot, and that at least we know that you should definitely consider seriously, because they are usually sometimes top tier schools. They do have merit money to attract, kids just like you who are talented, who are academically brilliant, and they can give you scholarships. And then those things are really worthwhile going for, because those scholarships can mean the difference between affordability and not affording something.
And remember, the scholarships are based on both your academic merit and your profile. The profile is everything you've done, which doesn't have to do with what you've done in school. So it can be extracurricular academics, or it can be starting your own company. It can be starting your own entrepreneurship, which is in an area of social difficulty to help people.
Okay. By the way, when the admissions readers, when they are evaluating a student, they give scholarships based on a number of different reasons, right? They actually have inside their school scholarship funds, which have been contributed by usually alumni of their institution. So let's say if and I'll give you an example of this. Let's say if University of Miami, as an example, has a particular fund established for people who have gone through hardship in life. Okay. And you happen to be a student applying to University of Miami who has gone through hardship in your life.
Or you've helped people who have gone through that.
Depends on what it is, right? But the fund clearly dictates what we're looking for. So to bring that candidate in, and obviously academically you're good and you're competitive candidate, you still have to be those things as well. They're not just going to look at you, the scholarship fund. They're going to see, first of all, are you a great candidate for us? Yes, we want to admit you. can we attract this individual through any of the scholarship options we have? And unfortunately, not all universities display what scholarships they have, but some do. Some actually clearly state, for example, this is a scholarship fund up to 50% scholarship, for example, of the tuition or the entire fees, or 100% for individuals coming from this background or so on. And they clearly state that that's what they're looking for. If you hit those things, and by the way, they do have international funding as well. That means they do have scholarships that are meant only for international students. So you're competing for them as an international student as well. But depending upon which scholarship is available in the school, they will then say, I think this is a great candidate for it. Can you sway those scholarships in your favor? Potentially, but not always, because you do not know who your competition is, and you do not know how many students are applying for those scholarships. But if you fit, let's say let's say 20 schools you're applying to, or 13 schools you're applying to, depending upon your ability of your high school to give you how many schools you can apply to, I would say you may want to target a huge number of schools that give scholarships, and a couple of schools that perhaps may give you financial aid, but not necessarily you know that they will be difficult to get into anyway. So as an example, let's say you want to apply to Yale or you want to apply to Stanford. Go ahead and do it. Do 2 schools. These are big shot schools. I know I'm going to check mark. I need aid. I'm applying there. My chances of getting into there at this moment is 0.05%, right? It means you have just declined your chances from maybe 2% to 0.05%, but at least there's still a chance. And let's say your application is in play for that. But the rest of the schools, you want to have a kind of a strategy on that, right? Which is select a few schools that are very likely to give you full scholarship. And there's great ways to do that. Potentially select some schools which are affordable just from their full fee structure point of view. And I'll give you a name of a school that you won't believe costs this much in comparison to everything else. Brigham Young University, okay, BYU. BYU costs approximately $20,000 a year to attend, but it's a top 100 school in the US.
Do you want to explain why?
It's a Mormon school, and the Mormon church pays into the school to educate whoever gets there. And they don't care whether you are Muslim, Hindu, no religion. They don't care about that.
They want you to have belief. Do you want to explain to them what they would have to give up to
Why
go
don't you
there?
just go ahead?
Okay. I mean, honestly, you'll have an amazing education there. And
But that's the only important part, Caroline. I don't think the other things matter that much.
And if you're a ballerina, you'll have the top education in the US for ballet. But what my students don't always want to go there for is the fact you're not allowed to drink coffee, you're not allowed to drink alcohol, and
well, alcohol is illegal in the US under 21 anyway, but coffee is this weird combination.
Yeah.
So Mormons generally don't like people drinking anything that's a stimulant. Okay, so coffee is a big oddity about this school. You can't have coffee, and that kind of makes a bit unusual of a thing, because the reason is Mormon religion says you should not be taking anything that is stimulant in nature, which can stimulate your senses in any way.
So that can be an issue, but it might
so
not
if you're a heavy coffee drinker, it might be slightly awkward to bring your coffee in like a hidden bag or something. By the way, the city where it's based do have Starbucks and stuff.
Of course.
So it's not that they are restricting people from going out, but inside the university, obviously, coffee is not available. It's as simple as that.
But obviously, if you're like our daughter and you hate coffee, it could
be
be
a
really good option. She's not going to that school yet. She's 2 years younger than that, but yeah, it could be a good option.
So BYU is actually, it's a top tier school. It's a top 100 school, but hardly anybody applies for it. But if you do apply to it, not only will they give you aid, by the way, even though they are need aware, but the fact that the cost of attending is only about $20,000 a year, all inclusive. And I'm not saying this is $20,000 in fees. It's all inclusive. It makes it very worthwhile. And by the way, they also have a branch in Hawaii. That means if you go there as well, you can live not only in Hawaii as an island and have beautiful four years of living on an island, which is very beautiful, but you'll also get the cost of education, which is very affordable.
Can I just throw in one point? Brigham Young have a business program. Now, undergraduate business degrees are not the norm at the top schools in the United States. There are quite a few that offer them, and there are many, many more that don't offer them because they don't want to offer anything professional. And it's a great business degree there. But there are other great business degrees in the top 100, and there are many, many more in the top 400. There just aren't really any in the top 10. No one offers business in the top 10, do they?
Yeah, definitely have some limitations. Okay. What other colleges and universities? Martin, Girija, why don't you step in and tell us which universities and colleges we have received merit money from, for which students?
Oh, there's so many.
And we will, I think between the four of us, I think we will try to get to tell you every university you should be considering, because they will give you merit money.
Well, not every
Okay.
university should be considering, but every best university that's worth
You know
considering.
what?
That offers
Before
merit.
we do that, I'm going to actually pull up the entire top 100 list, and I'm going to tell you one by one. And in this case, I might actually share the screen so you can actually go through it.
This is the Forbes top 100. That's what we prefer to use because all the employers, when they're employing you postgraduate, are looking at this list.
All right, here we go. All right, let's take a look at the Forbes 100. All right, what did we say about UC Berkeley? Is it going to have merit money attached to it? No. Right? Even though they have merit scholarships, it's usually reserved for Californian residents.
And you have to be attending high school in California for 3 years.
Yes, or US national. But this aid thing, as an Indian national, unfortunately, you're not going to get it. As a US national, go ahead and apply to aid. They are need blind.
Totally.
Yale, it's a need blind school, right? So need blind school means
To everyone.
you can apply to this school. Princeton, you can apply to this school with full aid requirement as an international student, and they won't care whether you need aid. They're very generous in that way. They don't care if you need aid. Stanford, this is the weird thing. Even though they're the top 4 school, they give a lot of aid to domestic
American
US
citizens.
nationals. International students, you will find it very difficult to not only get accepted because it's a very competitive school to get into, but also if you have one aid, your chances are next to 0.05%.
It isn't impossible. I've managed it, but it,
Yeah,
you know,
I
I've
have
done
to say
it for Indian students
for foreign
specifically.
nationals, it's very difficult to not only get accepted, but also there.
If it
Columbia,
is- yeah, okay.
it's a need-aware school. MIT, it's the one of the 5 need-blind schools. Go ahead and apply here. You will get money from them to afford your education, whatever the affordability is, if you apply there.
But to
Harvard,
get into MIT, you've got to create something technological or biochemical.
well,
Yeah.
but anyway, you can certainly get into a school like MIT with
Funding.
with other subjects as well, but funding is available. Harvard, funding is available. UCs, as I said, all of them. No, it's need blind. It's only need blind to US nationals. If you apply as a foreign national, you're not get anything. So your actual cost of attending is as much as what they normally charge, right? So if you look at the full profile, right, the cost of attending is about $66,000. Be ready to pay that amount. Okay, you're not going to get lower than that.
Wow.
All right, let's take a look at UPenn. There's not a need blind school. You will be assessed on whether you can afford to attend or not. Northwestern, not need blind. Dartmouth College, as of this year, is a need blind school.
Yes.
It's the 4th Ivy to do that. And from now on, if you apply to Dartmouth College as an international student and they accept you, if you have a need, they will fulfill it. Whether the need is 100% or it's 10%, they will fulfill that need.
Very exciting.
Duke does not give you need blind.
No.
And
for
by the way,
definitely.
all these schools that I mentioned so far, no merit scholarships. So if you want to get into those schools, unfortunately, you'll have to pay your way. Or if you do apply and you do get into Duke or you do get into Northwestern and you do have a need, they will fulfill it. But because you're applying for it, it will decrease your chances considerably. The fact that they're already the top 20 schools in the US, or here it's the top 10, it means it's already very difficult to get it in the first place. Okay. Cornell has the Tata Scholarship. So if you're Indian, if you have a need, don't worry about it. Go and make an application, put the check mark as I have. So technically for Indian nationals in particular, it's a need blind school, right? For US nationals, it's obviously need blind anyway. Vanderbilt has some scholarships and you can apply for it. So these are merit scholarships, but very hard to get, but definitely go for it. This is a high tier university that very few people from India apply to.
That's where you got the strength. And I would say,
And
not,
the reason is where it's located.
well, Tennessee, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not just India. If you're from anywhere in the world that is not the United States, especially the southern United States, Vanderbilt is interested because they want to increase the diversity of their campus and the diversity of their classrooms.
So as you can see, the school has 52% white. It has a very small non-resident alien, 11%. They want to increase that to a higher number.
Yeah, non-resident alien means you're not American. I know that's a strange expression. We've kind of got used to it over the last 20 years, but it's the strangest.
Yeah. So definitely Nashville, Tennessee. I would recommend all of you consider their merit scholarship options at
It's an Ivy
Vanderbilt.
League level university.
It is.
And it's amazing. And it does have a business program and it does have an engineering program. So it's quite unique in that way.
UCs, we already know the answer. You apply to UCs with financial aid, you're not getting in.
No.
If you apply, if you're thinking they will give you merit money, you are not going to get it. Okay, as an international student, it's highly unlikely. And highly unlikely means never. It means the chances are very, very low. Amherst College. Do you all remember? This is a top tier liberal arts college. It is completely need blind for international.
It's fantastic.
So if you have a $79,600 need, they will fulfill it 100% if you get accepted.
And this is one of the colleges that are known as the hidden Ivies. They're the Ivy Leagues that actually give you the opportunity to be in a small classroom with a professor right in front of you who's going to know your name. You don't get that at the bigger schools, especially like the University of California. But even at, say, Yale University, the first year, no professor's going to know your name. There's going to be 120 kids in your class.
That's right.
So Amherst College is a massive advantage.
Okay, I'm going to go, because there's about 100 schools and maybe even beyond that. I will go through a bit faster.
Okay.
USC, definitely apply. You can get merit money. There is a merit money deadline, which is the 1st of December. Make sure you apply by that time. Otherwise, you're not considered for merit at all. So 1st December, make sure your USC application's in. I recommend this school highly for everybody.
Definitely.
Williams College, unfortunately not. Pomona doesn't.
Can I just go back to Williams 1 second?
Sure.
Williams gives you 1 year in Oxford University, UK, and it practices the Oxford tutorial system throughout your time there. So if that's the kind of one-on-one attention that you want, and you want to be writing dissertations every single day, that's a really good bet. It's in the east of Massachusetts, so it's in the middle of nowhere, but it's amazing school.
Yes. Okay. So the next few schools, unfortunately, usually speaking, there's not much merit money available. These, of course, don't give you financial aid at all.
No,
but this
Georgetown
school, Rice University, definitely is one of the top tier schools that give a lot of merit money. And especially if you're going into some particular areas that they are more interested in bringing in.
However, they're looking for the very top of the top kids. They only want to give the money to those students who've gotten to 5 or 6 of the IBs.
They will.
In our
So basically, if you get into Harvard or Yale or Princeton, and you also get into Rice, Rice will not only accept you, but they'll accept you with a full financial package in merit scholarships. That means you will not pay anything to attend Rice. So that's the best
school.
Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to steal you from all of these higher tier universities.
Absolutely. And Rice is a very, very good school to get that at. Rice has just introduced its first business major. So anyone who wants to do business, you can go there. It's fantastically strong in the engineering and, well, all of the life sciences, but it's really got great programs in social sciences and humanities as well.
Yeah.
So worth a look at. It's in Texas, of course, which isn't everybody's taste, but it's a great place to be.
Yeah. Okay, University of Florida, Brown, all of these.
Florida's a nightmare. It doesn't like
Caroline, we don't have,
international
sorry, I
students.
can't go through every school. So if you just, yeah, sorry, because we have to go through everything, right? So all of these, unfortunately, no merit money, no merit money. Emory has some merit money. You can certainly apply to Emory.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
Beautiful
These
place.
small colleges like Bowdoin and stuff, unfortunately, Wellesley don't give any merit money or financial aid. So that's
because they're very competitive and they're looking for the top
Yeah.
of the top students.
JHU, unfortunately, doesn't give merit.
I wish.
Okay, and neither does Tufts. Neither does UC's. Caltech does not. University of Notre Dame does not. Well, they have some
It
merit
does
money.
to some Catholics, right?
Yeah,
So that is a thing.
Yeah,
If you're a Catholic and you're applying there, you have access to merit money. If you're
Yes.
not Catholic, you have less access.
Yes.
That's how it is.
Maryland, Swarthmore, Middlebury, Austin, Texas. So Austin, Texas, obviously is a very favored program for a lot of people to apply to. But remember, you're not going to get aid. You're not going to get any merit scholarship.
But the computer science program is off the charts good.
Yeah. Claremont McKenna weirdly is starting to give merit money.
Finally, after 25 years.
Okay, they are trying to attract more international students, and some of our international students have received merit money from them, which is not bad.
And that's a fantastic
So
school
this
to
is
look at.
definitely a school. By the way, it's a fantastic school. I would recommend this highly for anybody who wants to do economics in particular, but
And
other
political
subjects as well.
science.
Yeah.
Have a good look at the Claremont Consortium. There are 5 schools in total in that, and they are really exciting schools to be at.
All right, UC is Colgate, Carnegie, Texas A&M, College, Barnard, Brigham Young. Brigham Young, okay, 53rd in the US today. We were just talking about this, right?
And it gives you very low fees.
Cost of attending. I mean, I presume nobody knew that because nobody wants to go to Provo, Utah in the first place. But it's a big school, okay? It's a big school of 31,000 students.
That means big class sizes, right?
But if you have an affordability thing, right? If you apply to Brigham Young, right? Total cost $20,000. That's it.
And you're not allowed to drink any coffee.
That's okay. That
on
was already done.
campus.
Yeah.
But coffee's important to some people.
This is the most, I would say, highly unused school from international populations. And let me show you that as well.
But if you study ballet,
Right.
you want to apply, it's got the
It's-
top program.
It's obviously 80% whites. Only 3.7% of the entire population is international.
International,
And
yeah.
they want to increase that. And that's why this fee structure is valid for everybody. Okay. This school should be on everybody's list, I think.
If they want
If
to
the money is the important thing.
make those kind of sacrifices in terms of coffee.
Oh, you can, by
especially
the way,
coffee.
you can drink coffee, it's just not sold on campuses. That's
Yeah,
something like that.
you can go off coffee and go to Starbucks.
Yeah,
but
nobody's going to prevent you from drinking a cup of coffee when you're walking around campus. You can do that. It's just you can't buy it on campus.
Yeah, okay.
All right, Wesleyan, these one, Boston College, Davidson, Cooper Union. None of these actually provide any money.
Cooper provides money for every American citizen,
Well,
obviously.
we're going to go into that.
But, yeah.
Obviously, all of these schools have merit scholarships and financial aid for U.S. nationals. So don't worry too much if you're a U.S. national. But
Lehigh and Lafayette and Washington Lee do have merit for international students.
all right,
So does George Washington, Santa Clara.
yeah, okay, let me just stop, please. Santa Clara University says they have a lot of merit money, but I have to say one of our highest achieving students got admitted to Santa Clara, did not get any money. Okay, and
He's now going
and
to
he has-
Chicago.
he has a 36 out of 36 on his ACT, has straight A's, IB education at 40, 41 out of 42, did not get the merit money from Santa Clara, which is, I have to say, puts shame to Santa Clara that they are not giving money to a candidate like this individual.
They have their priorities, right? Every
They do.
single year. This is one
So-
thing you've got to know. Every year, every admissions committee has a priority and a few priorities actually about which students they want to take in that year. At the moment, Santa Clara doesn't seem to be giving any merit to international students. Will it again? Yes, undoubtedly.
But you know, the same student who going to Santa Clara going to University of Chicago as well, he's going to go to University of Chicago. If they would have, Santa Clara would have given him perhaps 100% merit, maybe he would have been swayed by that, but they didn't. Okay, these schools unfortunately do not.
Northeastern does give merit scholarships.
Northeastern has merit scholarships, so you can definitely consider Northeastern.
Rochester also
Rochester
has merit.
does. Now here, so as we get into these about 70 and above, lot more merit scholarship schools do appear.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of these schools starting from now generally will have some merit money.
NYU is the exception. It does not offer merit scholarships or scholarships to anybody at all, and no one knows why. It's just they, yeah.
So obviously, things like Binghamton University, SUNY, that's the
State
State
school.
University of New York, do not offer merit money.
They give financial aid to New York citizens.
Okay,
who've been
everybody thinks
accessible.
NYU offers a lot of money to people. They are the worst.
They're the worst. for
They
sure.
don't offer anything.
It's a great school, but they're the worst with money.
Great school, but no money coming from them. Boston U is a great school to apply to. They offer lots of money to international students who are gifted.
Yes.
Definitely apply here. Okay.
Miami also, right?
Yeah, University of Miami, you can get a full scholarship from them. Lots of different kind of scholarships available. Definitely apply to them. Bucknell has scholarships. Harvey Mudd, they do have scholarships, but I would say very limited.
Very limited, yeah.
Yeah. Things like Indiana University Bloomington, even though they are state school, public school, they will give some money potentially.
They want international students, people who've lived overseas.
Martin,
so-
Rija, have you missed out here any school that we have received merit from that we don't remember?
Or that we haven't mentioned.
I don't think so. I think we've covered
Are you
everything.
sure? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to actually remember everything that we received money from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rensselaer
Rensselaer,
gives scholarship.
it's a great polytechnic. It's a tech, right?
It's
And
a
then
tech school.
and it can certainly give you merit money as well. Okay, remember the UCs don't give anything. Villanova
Villanova
can
does.
definitely give that.
It's in Philadelphia. You're in a great place to
Yeah.
be. You've got a great business program, great engineering program. So if you can get in there and get a scholarship, that's fantastic. But it is a Catholic school. So if you're Catholic, it gives you an advantage.
Now remember, these are the top 100 schools that we've just gone through. And we have clearly told you where the merit money is very likely for specifically Indian nationals and where it doesn't exist for Indian nationals. If you apply to the schools that that doesn't exist and you apply for financial aid, you will reduce your chances of getting accepted. Doesn't eliminate it, but it definitely reduces your chances considerably. So that is something that everybody needs to think about, which is, what is my goal? Is my goal affordability, or is my goal only applying to dream schools that probably will maybe give me financial aid? If it is now maybe give me financial aid and you apply to all the dream schools, you'll get a lot of rejections. You need to understand that.
If you tick the box which says, are you applying for financial
Yeah.
aid? If you decide not to fill out the FAFSA and the CSS profile, so you're not applying for financial aid and you are the right candidate for dream schools, well, you have a really good chance of getting them. It is just getting that affordability sometimes is more important.
It is.
Because if you want to do postgraduate studies like medical school in the United States, which is so expensive, it's just so expensive.
Yeah, I would have to say, if you want to do medical school and you want a guaranteed entry into the job market right after, also the ability to retain back into the country, I would say the UK is a better option.
I would
Or
agree.
even Republic of Ireland. So I think
Yeah.
going to there, getting a medical school degree in a shorter period of time, less cost,
Way less.
and then
cost.
getting a guaranteed job right after graduation is the ideal way to go.
I think
US, you do 4 years and then you do 4 years again. And that too, with the cost attached to it is prohibitively high. Also, your chances of getting a medical school is much lower.
Because
So-
medical school in the US is 250,000 today. If you want to do medical school in the UK, age 18, you're going to pay maybe 30,000, and that's a
Per
heck-
year.
Well, yeah, but that's a heck of
Yeah.
a difference.
It is. And obviously it's a shorter duration of time. Okay, guys, we've tried to cover a lot of different things in terms of that. I'm happy to answer as many questions as you guys have, right? So
I think,
and I'm going to keep
at this point, Jose, thank you, firstly, both of you and Martin, for making sure and going through that exhaustive list, in such detail. What I would love for you guys to maybe, because you've got the last 5 minutes left, is to actually, of course, we've covered scholarships and merit-based, need-based aid. But if you could sort of move on to the topic of what are some of the things, maybe in the next 5 to 7 minutes, if you could talk about what are some things these students have to do to make sure they are competing with the best students out there. Are there programs? What kind of, everyone wants to become an entrepreneur. Those are some of the buzzwords, but how can you really surround yourself with things that you're passionate about? For example, for myself, squash was a way for me, because I used to play for India in the juniors. That led me to a high school and then college. Through that pathway, if you could sort of maybe elaborate on a couple of different pathways, and of course, what in your opinion these students can do, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think, Rashid, it's a very good point. And I think one of the things that I would clearly mention as well, if you are a high quality sports athlete, that means you are at a national level at something. A lot of these schools that we just talked about that don't give financial aid to people may give you money for being a scholarship athlete.
Because if you're an athlete, money comes with it.
Because
unless you go to the Ivies.
because they want you to be successful, and they know that with that, the name of Duke or the name of UC Berkeley or something will be attached. So they may have, especially schools like Stanford might also give you some money
a lot of
for
money.
athletic scholarships. Now, the Ivies do not give athletic scholarships in particular, but generally speaking, if you do apply to something like Stanford, I think that could be a really great option. If you're athletically brilliant, and let's say you're one of the top 10 in India, or you're the top in India, I would say apply to Stanford, because Stanford is a gifted sports school as well, and they will consider your merit requirement at that moment.
I mean, to be honest, though, if you're in the top 10 in India in any sport, you're in a really good position to get yourself into any of the top schools in that top 100, honestly.
Guys, I think the one of the key elements is this, is what are you doing different? So you guys, there's about, I think maybe about 50, 60 participants here. You guys are doing something with the Big Red group. You're doing a couple of different projects outside the school. Keep doing something that nobody else is doing.
That's the key.
Okay, that's a key element of how you differentiate yourself and make yourself into a viable candidate for top tier universities.
You want to stand out, and you want to show that you have academic interest that goes beyond your high school classroom and beyond your high school curriculum. You want to show extensive wider reading, and you want to show that you've taken everything you've learned in class and you've tried to apply that in the outside world to change lives of other people. And honestly, right now, that's a very big way to get in.
I mean, you know, lots of people these days are doing things like independent research work, right? Do that. It actually makes your application look like, first of all, it shows your passion for that particular field, that you want to study that field, but also it shows you're ready for intellectual work. You're ready to dig deeper into research and find out more critical information to make your classes wonderfully alive, and you're going to contribute a lot more for that. So that's very positive. But I would say the thumb rule here is this, right? If you see 20 people in your school, or 20 people in your class, or 100 people in your class doing that one activity you're doing,
stop. Or carry on, but just don't put in your college app.
You have to consider the fact that that activity is not going to be differentiating enough for me to go into Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Stanford, or so on. But if you find something that you're doing which is so unique, but you're doing it at a pretty high level, and nobody else that you know, or very few people that you know are doing it, then you have a very differentiated element in your application, which may or may not work. Now, that's something that obviously, you know, when we work with students throughout the sometimes 3 to 4 years, we tell them, look, if you're doing this activity, let's find a way to make it into an exceptional activity, and that's going to work in your favor. Otherwise, you have a choice. Either do it because you're enjoying it and you love it. For example, some people love playing cricket. Cricket is not a big sport in the US. And I say, keep playing it because it keeps you healthy, keeps your mind focused on something that you want to achieve. And it's a good, enjoyable thing to do. But if you put so much more time on it and you're losing grades in your school, perhaps it's not the best outcome, right? And then the grades matter. Now, one more thumb rule, you know, it's if you have straight A's, that means 90% or above in CBSE, ISC, or straight A's in IGs and so on, or IB, you have a score of maybe 38, 39, 40, you are a good candidate for top tier universities. And on top tier, I mean the top 50 schools.
But then you've got to set yourself apart on the extracurricular measure. And the extracurricular scale, they're looking for people who have done something exceptional at the very top, like Harvard, Princeton, Yale. And below that, they're looking for people who have taken leadership, who've shown creativity, who've shown their interest in a particular subject outside of the curriculum. They're looking for people who are really going to come to their campus and light it up in a lot of different ways. And that's what we want you to all be thinking about. You know, don't ever feel, oh, I can't do something like, you know, special. I'm not that gifted. You all are. You're all that gifted. You can all do something amazing.
Guys, we're coming to the end of the meeting. I don't know if you have some time to answer any more questions, we'll be happy to do that, obviously. You're all welcome to join you know, our collegeready.com. It's completely free of cost. You're welcome to come there, and you can see a lot of different videos there. Martin and Girija also come to live sessions there, so we can always answer questions there too. And if you ever want to find out exactly how we help students and do things, do get in touch with us. Our website is ivcentral.com.
Awesome. I think this is a great time for us to just open up the discussions. Guys, if you have any personal sort of questions that you want to ask them, our mentors, just feel free to unmute yourself and ask those questions. What I will also do is we have recorded the session, and I'll make sure that some of you I know who were texting me in the middle that, hey, can we get a recording? We will provide that. And some more information on Jose and Caroline and how you can get in touch with them coming your way as well. So any questions, guys, at this point of time that you might have? Anything in terms of scholarships, anything in terms of just about your university and what you think you need to do to just have a better application moving forward?
How many colleges can I apply to? And I've heard that there are different types of applications to colleges. I mean, you have safety colleges and then reach colleges. I'm not sure how the process works. So if you could like briefly tell me how many colleges I should apply to.
Yeah, sure.
In general.
So look, one thing I'm going to say is applying to college is exhausting. Okay, it's so much work. When you're balancing high school work and you have your exams coming up and you have your school, trying to nail down that you get all the work done. At the same time, you've got 1 or 2 organizations you're running, you're keeping care of your friends, your family members, and so on. I'm telling you, it's exhausting to take care of your application process. Okay. On average, our students apply to approximately 13 schools. And I would say the numbers we have, we work with 30 students a year pretty much to graduate them. And on average, I would say there's about 13 schools they will apply to, 13 universities across the US.
They choose that
Maybe they
number
might
for-
choose, maybe they might choose the UCs as a one single application that goes to all the UCs. So that's like 1:many application, and they have the UCAS personal application, which goes into the UK universities. They can apply to 5 there as well. But I would say 13 is a good number. But some of our students do go for 20, and sometimes they even go for 25. And I can tell you, it's a lot more work.
You gotta like writing essays.
You need to really love writing essays, and you need to be ready to get those rejections as well. But it all comes down to is what your school restricts you to do. So some schools, unfortunately in India, sometimes they say you can't apply to more than 9 schools, or you can't apply to more than 13 schools. So it really comes down to your school's ability to give you the permission to do that. As long as they're open to apply, I would say 15 is a good number. 20 can be done, but it just depends on how much effort you're ready to put into it.
Especially if you're applying for med school or any of those guaranteed programs, you're going to need to apply to a lot more.
Yeah, postgraduate. If you're looking at med school, you've got to apply for
No,
a
I
minimum
think
of
it's
30.
what you meant was guaranteed med.
The
Oh,
guaranteed.
guaranteed med. Oh yeah, again, I would say a minimum of 30.
Yeah, I think you want to apply. If you're applying for guaranteed med programs, guys, you need to apply to as many as possible. So you need to get sometimes special permission from your school to go beyond the numbers that they normally apply to.
It's just how it works.
But you can tell them that I've heard from an individual who's an expert in this field who says apply to more than what you're willing to allow me to apply. And even university admissions offices will say, please apply to more than 13 schools.
Oh, yeah.
Apply to as many as 20, 25 schools so that you have a chance of getting into maybe one of the guaranteed med programs.
Yeah, guaranteed med.
Now, for those that don't know what guaranteed med is, it guarantees that you will continue your entire education in that institute alone and graduate as a medical doctor. You'll do your undergraduate studies, you'll do your postgraduate studies in a combined fashion.
So it's 8 years usually, or 9 sometimes.
I have a question that come in. Do any scholarship consider if the student is top gifted kid of the nation? Yes, they do. So guys, if you got some kind of presidential award, the president of India gives a lot of different awards every year. If you have one of those awards, or if you are talented in one particular field and you are the top elite gifted kid, yes, your chances of getting into a top tier school not only improves, but it also means that you could get some merit money or financial aid as well. So if you are one of a kind, for whatever reason, you think, look, I've done something that nobody else does. Yeah. Send me a message and I'll tell you which schools and why they will accept you. Sometimes you need to contact the schools in advance. If you're, let's say, a highly gifted athlete in a particular sport, contacting a university in advance who has that sport at an NCAA 1, 2, or 3 level is important. So you need to contact the coaches in those schools and let them know you are a great gifted player in this sport and you would like to come to their school. They can give you the admission before the applications are due. It's as simple as that, right? So weirdly enough, they will tell you if you apply to our school, we will give you an acceptance. So these are I would say,
That's
the only
something. That's
backdoor
something called.
infuriating
That's
for
something called a.
for
Sorry.
athletes.
That's something called a pre-read, basically, of your
Yes.
application for athletes.
They look at your application in its entirety before you even apply, and they will tell you that if you apply, you will get an acceptance, and then you put a formal application in, and you will immediately get the acceptance letter.
Okay, so somebody's asked, does an academic program like IB boost your chances for scholarship? Yes, hugely. There's no other word for it. It massively improves your chances for scholarship because you're doing 3 higher level subjects which are at university level and are considered at that level. Whether or not that should be the case, we're very on the fence on that right now. Most of our students do IB though, and our placements, I think, to a great extent, a lot of our top placements go to the IB students over the CBSE and the ICSE and the A-level students. So that is worth being aware of. So if you've got that choice to move into an IB school, I would do it. I mean, apart from anything else, you get to keep studying so many different subject areas that you don't get to do on the other programs. It's a pretty exciting program. It's not the easiest, but it's very respected in America.
Yes, absolutely. And
One
the only drawback with it is for IB schools, you normally have to pay a lot more than I would say, obviously, because they're usually international schools in India. In the US, it's a bit different because some public institutions, which you can go freely as well, can be IB schools, and you can study IB subjects there for free, compared to in India, where unfortunately IB is not available in public institutions, because public institutions only offer CBSE, State Board, or ISC examinations.
Most of our students are in IB schools in India, and I would say those schools are pretty great. I'm very happy with that.
So IB not only increases your chance of scholarship, but it actually increases your chance of acceptance as well. So it's kind of a double benefit. But in consequence, you are also paying more for your IB school, but in benefit of that, it's preparing you a bit better than I think perhaps some other institutions to be ready for the first year. So IB is considered college level curriculum.
And it really is.
And it really is. Yeah. It is a much higher and much harder curriculum than perhaps CBSE, ISC, or even the normal standard US curriculum as well. So it does go higher than that.
We do find that our IB students, when they land in the US and they start their college education, they find the first year really easy. And they all find it easy. So I guess it is because of that IB preparation.
They do perform better in the first year compared to perhaps students coming from other curriculums.
And it's really...
But eventually everybody matches up, right? So
for sure.
It's usually not the case.
But it's very important to perform well in the first year of university education because your GPA that year matters as much as all the other years. So you want to, hit the ground running.
Having said the point about GPA, guys, I know a lot of you might not know this, but universities in the US consider all 3 years before you apply. So the 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, equally important.
Yeah.
So they do care about what you got in 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade. And on top of that, then when your 12th grade is there, they consider what your first half of the year look like.
So they'll look at all of your scores over those 4 years. They will actually give you what's basically a GPA to reflect those scores, which is a grade point average. And that is massively important in your application.
There's another question. Does IGCSE
one quick
give you an
question
advantage?
I think it does. To be completely honest, my experience over the last 30 years, I feel IG does give you an advantage. For one thing, you can take additional math on your math course, and that is something which gives you calculus much, much younger. So you can take AP Calculus BC and pass it in grade 10, but also IB because it makes you take all 9 subjects, and most students will take all 3 sciences, and obviously everyone's got to take the English and the foreign language and a couple of humanities as well, or social sciences. It gives you because it's 2 years long, unlike the US courses, which are just 1 year, it gives you a really good preparation for the IB diploma or for the A-levels, or even for the CBSE grade 11 and 12 or the ICSE 11 and 12. So I found that to be very, very helpful. And I wouldn't have said that 20 years ago, but after working in India for so long, I definitely feel that today.
Rishi, were you saying something?
Yeah, sorry. I did want to just highlight to sort of all the students here that that US colleges also do realize what your schools offer in terms of programs, in terms of your board examinations, in terms of APs. And they're very considerate about that. So of course you have to showcase that you're doing something above and beyond, than just your typical academic classes. But at the same time, if APs are not really offered through your school, or you're, in a sort of a far-flung area, you're not in a metropolitan city, and all of those things do matter. So I would just like to highlight that it should not stop you. Like, of course, do a lot of things beyond academics in your school, and even for your local communities. I see a lot of people. I was myself part of Round Square earlier. It's nice to go travel around the world and solve social problems. But if you can really showcase that you have solved a social problem within your community, within your colony, those mean a lot more, in my opinion, to colleges, because it's not that, okay, you just went somewhere for 2 weeks, did a project and came back. Sustain working within your community for a period of 4 years and showing that impact. And numbers, of course, matter a lot more. So whatever you guys do document it. And in end of the day, not really get worried that because of, my school is not really offering this or that. I think there are a lot of other ways that you can work on your application, on your passions. Today, the world is your oyster. I mean, I'm so glad that, mentors like these are telling you all these things. I mean, I myself was so late by the time I got to know about these things, and the Harvard coach just told me, hey, Rishi, why don't you apply to a boarding school here in the US? And I took that route. And again, I got something called Davis World Scholarship, which I was not aware of, which funded my education for the next 4 years. And I actually was not eligible for the Tata Scholarship because they had a weird rule that because I was applying from an American high school, even though I was an Indian national, otherwise I would have sort of.
Yeah.
So there are all these things you also don't know. I've got people known in USC who have gotten through presidential scholarships from India. So there is a lot of aid available, and I'm glad we're going to share some more links with you after. I hope affordability really is not an issue for a lot of you moving forward. And that was it for me. So just wanted to highlight a couple of points. Yeah.
I would also follow on from that by saying, if your school only offers CBSE or ICSE, just do your best on that.
Absolutely.
Every single university in the US will assess you based on what your school offers.
We've had CBSE kids get into the top tier universities as often sometimes as IB students. It doesn't mean IB students are the only ones. We have students, I think, in NPS Bangalore, which is a CBSE school, got into MIT, Stanford. We've got two brothers going to Stanford who did only the IB, only did the CBSE, and they took AP examinations on top of it. But so you can improve your application. But the main thing is this: you need to kind of balance both elements. Not only academically do well, but also do well from an extracurricular point of view.
But don't put stress on your parents. If you're at a CBSE, ICSE school and the nearest IB school is very expensive or in a different state where you'd have to go as a boarder, and you think your parents cannot fund that, do not even consider it. You don't need it. You can stand out in so many other ways.
Awesome.
Right, guys.
I think
any other questions?
Any last questions, guys, before we close today's session?
If I may, I've studied in an ICSE school from the grade 4 to 10. But then I shifted to SSC, an SSC school which specializes in IIT training for the Indian Institute of Technology. So will that make any impact on my application that I'm going to a school which stresses a lot on STEM subjects, on math, physics, and chemistry?
It can. So the US universities generally are looking for well-rounded people, right? Which is that they have done all kinds of subjects, including history is a very big requirement. Foreign languages is a big requirement. So I think they look at what you've done in your 9th and 10th grades in particular, and whether it fulfills majority of their basic minimum requirements. Remember, there is a minimum requirement, guys, to get admitted to universities in the US. If you are missing one of the minimum requirements, your chances of getting accepted becomes a bit less. So usually students who do CBSE have the social sciences, which covers their history requirement in particular. But students who are doing IG and IB as an example, right? Sometimes they miss out on history component completely. It reduces your chances drastically. Make sure you take in IG history every time, because if you don't take it, it means either you take it in IB, or if you don't take it, it reduces your chances of acceptance.
But I'm guessing that before she went on to the SSE, she did the regular CBSE ICC
Yes.
route, and that got her through the history 2 years requirement.
Of course. So I mean, it can still work. We've had students who have gone into University of Pennsylvania, for example, who are doing completely what you're doing, IIT, JEE prep.
We have a
So
lot of students from FitGs over the years, and they do really well.
they do really well.
Don't worry about it.
So I think just make sure you do an SAT and stuff and show your standardized abilities are very good. So just make sure you do an ACT, SAT, so you show your actual abilities, and that will help you a lot.
It will indeed. And do not ever be afraid that you're on the wrong course.
And if you can, go and do a Math BC, Physics C.
Oh yes.
Do the subjects that you're really good at, get your IBs, your AP examinations done, and that'll show to universities that you're an ideal candidate for them.
So what Joe was just saying, having followed the SFC, if you want to do the APs in the top areas of math and physics, you would fly through them. You'd be brilliant at them.
We'll take one final question from Pranjal. Yeah.
Yes.
Pranjal, go ahead. Okay, I'm not sure if Pranjal can hear us. Pranjal, if you have a question, just feel free to unmute yourself. Once again, a couple of final points from my end would be that each and every college that really sends you an acceptance wants you there. They have sent you that acceptance for a reason. I know going from an Indian school, we all just think a lot more about the Ivy League colleges, but over the course of the years, whatever the definition of success is in all of our minds, I've had my friends who have gone to the best colleges, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, maybe did not like it, and at the same time, maybe did not really get to the right places after. And people who have gone to not such good colleges, maybe at that time, I think Northeastern has made its way up, but was not considered so competitive school to get into. Trinity College, which is in Connecticut, these schools which not many people would think about, but have an amazing alumni in India and abroad. Those students are doing really, really well, and are in the top echelons in any of the industries after 10 years of our graduation. So I would say that do broaden your horizon. All these colleges are fantastic colleges. All of them offer something really, really unique to you guys. So even if you don't make it to an Ivy League college, that is fine, because there's so much more. I mean, the 4 years of your life that you're going to put in there, goes a long way, right? So it's not just what you're doing in high school and getting into a top college. You still have to do really well in college. And for that matter, I'm really glad Caroline brought the topic of, I took a lot of APs, and I was really stupid of taking so many introductory macroeconomic, microeconomic courses in my freshman, first semester. And because of that, my GPA, I could have had a straight A's, but because it was so tough for me, I was getting B minuses or B's. And I was like, why did I do that? I could have so these are very important tips. Even though you have APs, do not go in and think, oh, I'm smart, and going in and taking the hardest classes in your first year, and things like that. So once again, if you have any other questions, we will be sending you another email. You will get Caroline and Jose's information. Please do reach out to them for any more questions related to US colleges and colleges in general. And once again, I thank all the mentors who are here from your team, Jose, and to all the students for making it here. I will close the rooms right now. So you have a great Sunday, the remaining of the day. Have a great weekend, and have a great week ahead. Any final pointers from you, Jose and Caroline?
No, thank you so much, Rishi, for letting us meet all of your students. And I certainly hope that this was helpful for people who are looking at the US universities. And as I said, if there's anything we can do to help you out to make sure that the students are successful, we'll be happy to do that.
Absolutely. And if any of them have questions after this, we can definitely answer those.
Sounds good. And feel free to go to our website, thebigredgroup.com, also to see some cool summer programs that we have coming up this year. Until that time, have a good day, guys, and see you all soon. Bye.
Bye,
You guys take care. Have a good day.